Hi, I'm Rob. Welcome back to my channel. I was going to talk about water, distractions, water purifications. There's a lot of other prepper channels and all that, and I'm sure you already know some of this stuff. Maybe you haven't, and you're a beginner. Some of this stuff you might be able to find like down in the hunting sections. That's at different stores like Walmart and so forth, sporting goods stores. You might be able to find, something like this. Water purification tablets. It's an idea, just follow the directions and all that. You're all good. There's water purification tablets. Something else I didn't know if you knew was bleach. You can't use scented bleach. Uh, I forgot exactly which one it is. You have to Google it, but it's like 8 drops of bleach in it. And let it sit for like 30 minutes. Make sure there's no chlorine smell and stuff like that. But anyway, that's something else you can look into if you ain't got money to spend. Maybe you got a bottle of bleach there. Make sure you got the right bleach though. But you can Google it yourself and check it out yourself and write it down because in case or whatever happens, communications goes down, you're not going to be able to Google it. You need it. Like I said, like I said on my other videos, you got to have it on paper. You have to have it on hand. In life and death situations, you're not going to be able to Google. It's just the way it is. But anyways, now there's also you can look at like Sawyer straw, like a mini Sawyer straw. They used to have Life Straw was another one back in the old days. Like I said, you can look at the hunt section. You know, these other ones that I picked up some different ones. There's nothing wrong with having different ones. Multiple. We got family, or friends you want to take care of. Nobody else is prepping, and you're the only one. They're going to be counting on you. So that's the way it is, fortunately. But if you're by yourself, and you got a couple extra, you wouldn't mind getting rid of. You can barter with them, barter with somebody, live stream souls, or maybe have extra thing of these and barter with, get some beans and some bread, homemade bread or homemade pies or whatever, ammo. When bartering comes into play, any game on. You can switch, said ammo for food or food for ammo. A lot of people don't want to part with ammo, but I'm just saying that's going to be like gold, just like water. Water's going to be number one priority, anyways. You can't live without water. You got to have water. And a lot of the foods you got to have water with, and that, and this and that, whatnot. Anyways, then you got water pitchers. You ain't got to have this. I know my mom had a water pitcher. I bought it for her. Anyways, but she didn't want it. The water pitcher she had it for years, and she loved it. She bought filters for it. That was just her thing. So everybody's got their prerogative. They got their own thing going on. Yes, I know money's tight and stuff's expensive, and I completely agree. The reason why I got a lot of stuff, I've been prepping off and on since, honestly, since Obama was president. That was when I started, his first term. I started seeing things happening, what was going on, and everything. And plus, I watched a lot of channels and prepping channels, and as I started thinking, what if? I ain't just saying like end time zombie stuff or nothing. It's just, earthquakes, natural disaster, solar flares, which has happened back before I was even thought of or born. Back in it was 1800 whatever, fried all the communication back then. You know, basically Morse code. That's the last whatever. But anyways, war, which we're in war. If you don't think we're in war, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, besides Venezuela, we've been at war with China and other countries. It starts with infrastructure, food and stuff like that, trade wars and all that and everything. Anyway, I'm not an expert, but it's pretty obvious we've been at war with a lot of other countries besides seeing it on the news. They're not going to show you everything anyways. So, and that's one thing is bad. I'll say that for another video. I'll stop there. But anyway, like I said, what the cool part is, Patriot Supply is where I got a lot of this. Yes, You know, these are expensive, and it took me 4, maybe 5 years. I can't remember honestly to get this. And they're like, what? And I was like, yeah, years. You know, because it's a high expensive ticketed item. Um, what made me get it was when I was at the time when I was working OT, I had my finances, my bills were paid, and everything like that. Well up to date, so that way I had a little bit of extra money. But they got a firm, AFFIR, a firm where you can do the pay plan, you know, and that's what. And plus it was on sale. You know, they do sales, you know, and then that's where I come into play. I look for sales. There's like, you know, some things I waited, you know, 6 months for it to go on sale. There were some things and I waited, you know, a year or so, a couple of years, you know, to get because, you know, I didn't have that extra money to burn, you know, low on something. I wanted it, you know. I mean, don't really need it, but I wanted it, you know, to have just in case. What if, you know? I mean, I wanted to be the ones that has and has nots, you know. So if it did happen, you know, I had it, you know, not really wishing I to use it. But like I said, yeah, you know, they got the Alex Pure, you know, water purification system. You know, you can always get. You should have a good filter in the house, anyways. If it ain't that, you should have something. You can get a Berkey. I know a lot of people dead set on Berkeys. You know, water. I don't see nothing wrong. I'm not knocking any. I'm not making anything off any of this. I'm going to put that out there right now. None of this. I'm not promoting anything. I'm just suggesting and talking about prepping stuff, and I'm not making anything off of this at all. You know, but I'm just saying that you should have some stuff on hand. You know, I mean, it's the cheapest thing I can think of is, you know, unless you want to, if want to, you can do the work. You can make natural filtration systems. You can have to Google, YouTube, and whatnot, and you know, and look for that. But they do have where, you know, put sand and charcoal and rocks and this and that, and they have, you know, like they'd take a bottle or whatnot, and then it shows how it works and goes through and purifies it. Another thing you should know before you pour it into your this or anything. I mean, really, what you should do is strain it. Sorry, strain it. And you can use like a metal strainer, like you would like spaghetti or whatever. Or I recommend it also was coffee filters. Everybody's got coffee filters, you know, and they're cheap. So you can use a couple of coffee filters, like from the pond, and strain it and get all the big stuff out, chunks and stuff. Then you can use chlorine bleach, or you can use you know, water tablets. They also got a solar cooker thing, you know, for food and water. Yeah, you know, you can use that. You can buy one of them too. Solar ovens. That's what it's called. Solar ovens. Yeah. If you got the money, you know what I mean. You know, that's the thing. I mean, if you got the money, you can have all the things in the world. But if you ain't got it, do with what you got. You know what I mean. As long as you got some coffee filters or a strainer, metal strainer, you can go to the creek or pond and strain it first. You know, get it into the pot or canteens or whatnot, and use the chlorine bleach. Let it air out. And it'll get all the, you know, stuff out. But, you know, boil it. That's another thing. Um, you know, you can't just drink it out. You know, strain. I mean, yeah, you got these, you know, that help, but I'm just saying, if you ain't got that, you just can't drink out of the streams. You know, it ain't pure like it was back in the Indian days. You know what I mean? Back when, you know, before our time, before we polluted everything. You know, oil, gas. Man, we dumped everything in toxins, all kinds of toxins and drugs and whatnot. But anyways, well, yeah, that's something you should think about. You can look into. Like I said, you can watch the videos and you can do it yourself. You know, making your own, you know, sand and I use sand and pebbles and charcoal, wood, charcoal. Uh, I can't remember what else. It's been a while since I watched it, but you know, like I said, you can write it down because it ain't gonna do much good. You're gonna be able to watch it. We ain't got no internet, you know, communications. It's good to have stuff on paper, you know, and you can have that, you know, with your bug out bag or whatever, you know. But yeah, it's just some things to think about. And has a variety of things. It's good to have a variety of things. That way, if something fails, you got another, you know, and not everything lasts forever, anyways. But yeah, you know, like I said, you pick the stuff up about anywhere. Patriot Supply, hunting sections at stores, Walmart, and you can Google it. But like I said, you also got Berkey too. A lot of people like it. I know that. I just went with Patriot Supply, so I've been buying a lot of my stuff since, uh, since I first seen Patriot Supply. It was back when Obama was president, and it started coming out. I ain't gonna say who was showing it, but it was on the news network. Anyways, and I just seen it, and I started buying a few here and there. The limit two at the time. Shoot, it was like a month supply for $99. I mean that's how long ago it was. But anyways, like I said, check it out. Like I said, I hope this might help you think about things. Like I said, they have osmosis systems too for the house. That's something they might look at. Reverse osmosis system. Sorry, that's something else you can think about. Which they use that in Aquafina drinking water. Too. That's what they use to purify with osmosis system. But that's something you can look into maybe too. But you should have some kind of because there's just a lot of bad stuff in the water these days. Even you've seen that with the. Um, Trying to think, it was on the news. It's been all over. I don't want to talk about it too much, but it was a military base was one of them. But anyways, it was all over the place. But yeah, there's some places where they have bad waters. So you gotta have good water. Clean it. Drink it, whatever. They got mugs too with filters in it. I don't know what else they're going to come out with. Maybe a tumbler with a filter in it. Maybe I don't know. But they got other filtration systems. Something to look into. But you guys should be drinking good water. It's good for you. Even though I struggle with trying to drink water. But anyways, I hope you liked the video, and I hope it might help. It might give you some ideas. Like I said, you can always make your own little thing with sand and charcoal and pebbles, or buy some extra coffee filters, a couple things of them, or strainers. You should be able to strain whatever water, get the big chunks, and like I say, you can boil chlorine bleach. You got to have good water, to survive anything, no matter what it is, kind of disaster. I hope it helps. Thank you. Have a good one.